Hey lady, welcome to the Postpartum on Purpose podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 5 beautiful kids, ages 9 and under, with 1 miscarried baby. Here we see postpartum, all the way from birth to the first year of life, as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 72. Hi lady. At time of recording, it is just over 2 weeks till Christmas, 2 weeks from tomorrow, and I wanted to chat briefly about traveling with children for the holidays, specifically a new baby, but especially if you have a new baby plus an older child or children. Let's first get into free things for the week and one small change, and then we'll carry on. Free things, if you've been around for a minute, are things that I just cover as a reminder that living a rich, meaningful, beautiful life can happen no matter how many children you have and without breaking the bank. And also to remind myself in particular, but you too, I hope during postpartum in particular, that there is always something to be grateful for. And just thinking about something I didn't have to pay for is an easy sort of shorthand mentally for me to pay attention to the things that I can be appreciative of. Free things this week have to do with food, all of them. One is that we were invited over to a friend's house on Sunday night, I think it was, for supper. And that was such a gift to be with them, for our kids to play with their kids. There was a minimum of fighting this time, which was even better. And the food that we enjoyed was delicious. On Monday, we then hosted other friends. We made the meal, but the wife brought the Guinness chocolate cupcakes. Those were sensational. And the third free thing that was food related this week was an appetizer we enjoyed at Texas Roadhouse. My parents came into town to enjoy a meal with us as a celebration of our collective family birthdays this month. And that was the gift too. I had the free appetizer for it being my birthday month. Thank you, Texas Roadhouse. Thank you. And then my parents covered the rest of the meal. And even better, again, this has been a good week, I suppose. My kids behaved really well during the meal overall. And of course, that's in perspective, right? Like for their developmental ages, everybody kept a lid on it to the extent that was expected. That doesn't mean nothing crazy happened. Other than that, I think that sums it up. I think that's good for free things. And then the one small change this week was learning to make changes in my life without judgment. And this is still something that I'm fairly new at age 35. But yesterday was my husband's birthday, and I spent a fair amount of time preparing the supper for him, went grocery shopping in the afternoon to make sure we had all the ingredients, and also to make sure that my kids could get a gift for their dad, so on and so forth. Spent time on trying to make yesterday a very special day for him. But last night it was close-ish to bedtime, 9 or so, and I was just sitting out in the living room scrolling on Instagram, and he was, I think, in our room reading or scrolling or something. I'm not sure because we were in different places. And there was nothing that I was watching or reading that was objectionable, of course. It was all good things. But I realized I had this moment of awareness as I was reading something. Oh, should I be talking to him right now because it's his birthday? And is it not very good of me to be separate from him and all of these things? And then I thought, you know what? I spent plenty of time with him today. Plenty, I guess, is a relative term, but I spent good quality time with him and for him on his birthday. What if I took away the part that says I need to feel badly about consuming social media at any time and or right now specifically? And what if I said, is scrolling right now in pursuit of the things that are actually important to me, the things that I would actually say are priorities? Because I would not ever say it is a priority of mine to scroll on social media. I would never write that down as a priority. And yet at that time, that's how I was spending my time, and some things I had written down just the night before that I would like to incorporate, in particular during Advent, but also honestly just in general, broadly speaking. Things like making time for my Hinge Health app stretching and exercises, things like getting some movement in, especially earlier on in the day, working through the Hallow, Pray 25, Advent reflection, having a cup of tea. There were just some things that I thought these are things in pursuit of a good, in pursuit of health in different facets of my life, and also reading for half an hour every day. And I just thought, I didn't write scrolling on social media on any of those things. But while I am doing that right now, I am not doing some of these other things that I have said are my priorities. And without judging myself for spending time there and saying, should have been doing that instead of, or should not have been doing this, should have been spending quality time with your husband instead on his birthday. I just thought, you know what? This isn't actually in line with my priorities. I'm just going to delete the app. It's as simple as that. I'm just going to delete the app. I will re-download it for 5 minutes on Friday when I upload the link for this week's episode from YouTube. And then again on Monday when I do a short post with some highlights from this episode. I do that every week. Friday on the Instagram account is the YouTube link to the episode. And then Monday is sort of a post teaser. What does that mean? A wrap up, a highlight reel to throw some points out that were important from the episode so that if somebody wants to go back and listen, they can do that knowing a little bit more fleshed out than just the title of the episode, what it was about. But that's the one small change. Making changes, learning to make changes without the judgment, just because from a detached perspective, is that the right word? They are not in keeping with the things that I do prioritize, the things that are most or more important to me. Without further ado, let's talk about travel over the holidays with baby. And the first thing I'd love for you to consider is, do you want to travel? Do you want to travel? You might answer that lots of ways. One of them might be, oh, but Anne-Marie, this is just what we do. Okay, maybe it's what you've done. Is it still what you want to do? Does it make sense for you right now? Maybe you'd say, Anne-Marie, my baby's 10 months old. Yeah, I do. I do want to do this. Great. Go you. But you might say, maybe my baby's 10 days old. Do you want to do this? If it's an option on the table to not travel, what would that feel like to you? To just put it on the table. Not to say you have to choose it, but to consider the possibility that it's on the table. Maybe you want to travel and maybe you don't. Maybe you will keep doing what you've done in the past. Maybe you will not. And maybe you'll do something differently just this year. Maybe just this first year, not forever. That's a phrase that I've heard often in the postpartum workout videos from the Nourish Move Love YouTube channel. It's not forever, it's just for now. It's not forever, it's just for now. Do you want to travel right now? And also, do you want to travel over Christmas or right around Christmas, such that you are away from your home on Christmas Day? Once upon a time, I believed we had to be with either my family or his family on Christmas Day. In fact, I would have told you that it didn't feel like Christmas if we were not with my family or his family on Christmas Day. We have been married 10 years now. And sometime in the last 3 years, I think, my perspective has shifted. And to be truthful, all the cards face up on the table. My husband was ready long before I was to have Christmas just be us. But there was something in my sense of identity that had not yet accepted our family as a distinct unit, as a distinct entity. And that shift had to happen before I was able to say, yes, Christmas can be just for us. So if you're asking yourself, do I want to travel at all? I would love for you to qualify your answer with, and do I want it to be right on Christmas? Or am I open to it being before, after, over New Year's? Just things to think about. If you could lay everything out on the table as a possibility, looking at what would be the healthiest, best option, from what you can tell, you're not a mind reader, you're not a fortune teller. From what you can tell, what would be the healthiest thing for your baby and yourself, and then your relationship with your spouse and any other children that you have. And then if you say, yeah, I do want to travel, whenever that is, I'd love for you to consider what your expectations are. Now, you've heard just like I have before, think about what your ideal day would be and reverse engineer backwards from that. I used to think, well, my ideal day, I guess, would begin with winning the lottery, which you have to play before you can win. But something ridiculous, right? Like, well, it wouldn't be the day that I have. It would be a day in a different country, backpacking through Europe. But if I consider what would be the best version of the life I actually live on an average day, okay, well, then that's where something comes in, like the list I was mentioning. Well, I would definitely be getting movement in my day. Well, I would be having a cup of tea and slowing down for 5 minutes to just sit and drink and be present. If you were to look at what are your expectations for what traveling with your child or children could look like that do not involve fantastical fantasy things, but involve reality, what might that look like? Because so much of the stress that can come from a situation is related to expectations that are not met, right? And sometimes they are expectations we didn't even know that we held until they were not met. Sometimes we're aware of what we're expecting or hoping for, but other times we're not until it doesn't happen, and then we're disappointed. I would just simply ask you, spend 5 minutes considering what would a decently reasonable, respectable day look like of travel, or a weekend of travel, or a visit to some place that is not our home with my postpartumly new, whether that's 0 days or up to a year old baby, and my postpartum self, and then any other children that I have. What might that look like? And does the pace that I am picturing, either for the day of travel or for the weekend, the trip, is it possible for my children? We are not traveling to visit my husband's family this year, but if we were, the absolute shortest possible travel day from here to Nevada, which would be a 22-hour drive, but I'm saying flying, the shortest possible day would still be 13 hours. If we left our house early in the morning, we drove 2 hours to the airport. We got there in time to get through baggage claim, right? Check our bags, check in for the flight, all of these things. Be there in plenty of time for all of that to happen. And the flight left on time. We would then fly for several hours. Then we'd land in Vegas. We'd get the rental car. We'd pick up the stuff from the baggage claim. Then we would drive 4 more hours to get to where his family lives. The shortest possible day is 13 hours. The vast majority of that time, our children would not be stretching their legs because we would either be sitting in a car or sitting in a plane. That's very difficult for small children, which is why we will probably in future visits just drive, because we can do that over multiple days, make a whole vacation out of it, go to museums, etc. But the question at its core is the pace that I am picturing for my family possible for the age of child or children that I have? And then on a practical note, you've drilled down that you want to travel. You've considered what your expectations are. You've measured them against what is reasonably possible for your child or children. And now you're thinking about all the things that you have to bring. Because according to every parenting blog ever, you must bring fill in the blank. This isn't that kind of an episode. In fact, I'm hoping that a friend of mine will do an episode on traveling with kids from a products perspective, like a very, very practical, bring these specific things, don't bring these other things point of view. That's not what this is. This is more the mindset or the kind of broader macro level to consider. But in the future, hopefully I'll have the micro level to consider also. But let's say that you have decided you're going to go. All right. What is already there for you? Meaning you don't have to bring it because the place you're going already has it. If you're going to an Airbnb, do they have a pack and play? Do they have a high chair? Do they have baby blankets and bedding? If you're going to an in-law's house or your parents' house, fill in the blank. Do they have things already that you don't need to bring because they have them? Next question to consider. What is easy to buy that won't take up too much space? Let me say that again, and I'll give you the example to make clear what I'm trying to say. It is easier space-wise for me to just buy the diapers that I want. If we're going to be gone for a week, let's say, I'll buy them when I get to where we're going. Instead of trying to bring a week's worth of diapers for multiple children, I have 2 kids in diapers right now, 2-year-olds and then the 6-month-old. I'll just bring enough for a day and a half, 2 days. And the rest I'll get when I get there. I also want you to consider, how much do I need to bring of any given thing? When it comes to clothes, how many pairs do I need to bring of clothing before I have to do laundry? And do I have access to laundry facilities? Because if I do, then arguably it would make sense to bring very few things, because that would be the easiest to keep track of, which means the least likely to lose things. I'll just wash clothes while I'm there. And then the point that I want to piggyback off of that with is this. This is the last thing. Can you buy or bring things that are secondhand so that if they are ruined or lost or otherwise altered to become unusable, that it can matter very little to you? I know this is the time of year where everybody wants to wear matching pajamas and there's super cute pictures and so on and so forth. And maybe you get your matching pajamas secondhand so then you don't care. But I have found it incredibly helpful from a stress perspective to buy the prettiest church clothes I can find, as an example, from a secondhand store. Because if something happens to them, I don't care. I did not spend $50 on the outfit. Max, I spent $10. If something happens or it gets accidentally left behind in the hotel, it's not the end of the world. Nobody has to ship anything to me. It's not a big deal. We just get things secondhand as much as possible. We get the nicest we can afford, good quality, but the fact that I did not break the bank trying to procure it makes me much more easygoing about it if something happens. Those are just jumping off points, lady, but I hope that they can help you keep a perspective of not being swept along in the tide, so to speak, but of having agency over how things can look, and this perspective that life happens for us and not to us. Of course, things are going to come up in the course of holiday travel, visits to other places, our kids being out of their nap routine, us being out of our routine, all of these things. I'm not here to say we can account for every variable. I'm simply saying, how can we be practical? How can we be reasonable about how we want to approach the holidays and travel and our expectations of how things will go, so that we can keep in mind the broadest possible goal or the broadest possible concept, which is postpartum in a microcosm is a reflection of life in general. It's a time for growth in our skill set and our mindset. It's a time for grit. Sometimes we do things that are going to be stressful for us, and we know that in advance. We know that in advance. But we know that they will be stressful for us, but there will be a good that comes out of it. Maybe it's the good of our kids getting to hang out with their cousins. Maybe it's the good of getting to interact with people that we don't see very often, even if it is stressful to get to that point or what have you. But postpartum is a time for grit and growth and grace. We recognize as well that at the end of the day, it's not all up to us. It is not all up to us. We can plan, we can do what we are able to do, and yet there will still be some monkey wrench that is thrown. There will still be something that happens that we didn't plan and anticipate for. And that's where we just rely on God's grace and say, oh, I didn't see this. Okay, let's see what can be done. What is the good that can come? I hope you have the very most restful holidays coming up ahead, lady. I'm planning to do one more episode next week, And then we'll be off for 2 weeks for the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's as well. And we'll resume. That's the word I wanted. Resume after that.